funny. You probably realize that there are 2 Bob Fests. Okay?
Yeah.
I know this is the bigger one. They're both in Sauk County. One's in Baraboo, the other one's in Spring Green. One's about a guy from town of Primrose over here. The other one's about a guy from Hibbing, Minnesota. Bob and Bob. 2 greatest inspirations I think I've had in my whole life. Bob DeFollett and Bob Dylan. I intend to be down at that other Bob Fest next year, because it's going to be Bob's 70th birthday, Bob Dylan's 70th birthday. All right, I know it's painful, but I want to connect Bob Dylan and Bob LaFollette through the words of Bob Dylan. I think one of the greatest songs Bob Dylan ever wrote, which was never put on an album, but was in the legal bootleg album. It's legal, he authorized it. I think it might be CD 3, take 14. The song is called Blind Willie McTell. Good, Blind Willie McTell. You know, I went to a Dylan concert here at the Kohl Center a couple of years ago, and you know how does a Dylan concert? You don't realize that one of your favorite songs is being sung till it's 2/3 over. And I go, what song is it? Oh, it's Blind Willie McTell. Well, it's a song that he wrote that is one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever seen about this blues man that he considered a great inspiration. But he had a line in this song that reminds me of the cause that you're here for and the cause that I'm here for and that certainly Bob LaFollette was for. He says, well, God is in his heaven and we all want what's his. But power and greed and corruptible seed seem to be all that there is. That's the world Bob was imagining in post-Reconstruction South. And that's the world that Bob LaFollette confronted in this state in the late 19th century. He came out of this county and said, enough of the railmen and the timbermen dominating and destroying our government. He said, I will lead a progressive movement that will last for well over 100 years, which of course it has done. He saw the power and the greed and the corruption. But I guess even Bob LaFollette would not have been able to imagine the level that we are experiencing today. The power and the greed and the corruption of those Wall Street firms convincing us to sell off our banks, destroying the post-depression regulations, and now acting as if we really have regulation from that bill we just passed. It doesn't do the job, my friends. It is still a gift to Wall Street. The power and greed and corruption of the oil companies, who worked that Bush-Cheney administration like a charm. It probably wasn't too hard to do. To make sure that they weren't seriously regulated when they are doing deep water drilling. The power and greed and corruption of corporations like the pharmaceutical companies, who jammed through an unpaid-for Medicare Part D that left a big donut hole for seniors and didn't allow us to get our medicines in from Canada. The power and the greed and the corruption of the health insurance industry, who finally have a few restrictions. They can't kick 1 million people off their insurance here in Wisconsin anymore because of pre-existing conditions, but they're running every candidate they can so they can repeal that law. That is beyond belief, and the American people have to resist. In fact, there is no institution in our society that is safe from this corporate greed and corruption. In Congress, it was these big corporations that pushed through those trade agreements. The NAFTA, the GATT, and the China deal that sent our jobs overseas. It was the power and the corruption and greed of the private contractors who love making money in wars like Iraq and Afghanistan, who advanced notions like the idea that the President of the United States can do whatever he wants, regardless of the acts of Congress. It was the power and greed of these corporations that have come to dominate our media, consolidating messages in a few hands and crushing the voices of everyone else. And now, after they've attacked the media, the Congress, and the executive branch, they have finally managed to corrupt the United States Supreme Court, turning our system of government and our democracy into another example of what is essentially corporate naming rights. My friends, I understand and believe what many people in this country are saying is that too much big government is bad. It is. Government with a heavy hand, as with the Patriot Act, that can look at your library records without any reason at all, is wrong. So too much corporate, too much government power is a danger. But there's one thing that's worse. That is big government completely dominated and controlled by corporate special interests. That is more dangerous. That is the biggest threat to democracy and the rights of the American people. Corporate domination. Friends, we will ultimately win this battle. Just as Bob Lafayette did over 100 years ago. We will challenge them tonight. We will challenge them tomorrow in Baraboo. You better believe I need you to challenge them on November 2nd. And we will challenge them every day, every month, every year, till we get our democracy back in the spirit of Wisconsin's motto. Forward, forward, forward.